Hey everybody, and welcome back to the NateFlix podcast with Nathan and Ty. We are here to give you our thoughts on the penultimate episode of the entire series of Game of Thrones, The Bells. Stay tuned to hear our thoughts. All right, we are back. So, that was it. Penultimate episode, Ty.
Is that the proper way to describe this?
Penultimate. You know, we've always talked about the penultimate. So Game of Thrones is one episode away from being over forever. And last week, if you paid attention, we had a lot of thoughts, especially that guy right here. Oh, right there. That's how we do it. He was not happy. Well, I guess we'll get into our overall thoughts, but Ty, you kind of threatened wanting to be done. You said you weren't excited about it anymore. You weren't looking forward to tonight's. Did you watch it? Are you still on board?
I have to say that I am proudly back on board. You know, I'm sure there are millions of people that hated this episode, and you might be one of them. But there's actually some things that I really liked about this one, and I just like how they're just like, screw it, we're just gonna do whatever we want now. And I just kind of liked it. It's kind of like, screw you to the fans. And that's kind of what I like, because that's what Game of Thrones has always been about. Screw the fans. We're just going to do what we want. And so it's like a coming back home to, I liked it. It was a homecoming. Spider-Man style.
I am definitely in agreement with you that they probably had a moment where they said, screw it, we're going to do what we want. They were on Jimmy Kimmel last week, I believe it was, and they said that their plan for the finale is they're going to go somewhere together with their wives and get super drunk, stay away from their phones, and not care what people think of the finale, which, nailed it. They must have seen this one coming, unlike some things I did not see coming in this episode. So, Ty, I'm going to give you the floor before I start getting on my soapbox and going on a rampage. What are your kind of like overall thoughts on the episode? Your lasting thought with what's happening?
Oh, lasting thought. Listen, you know, this is something that this should have been 2 seasons. Like, we could talk about this all the time. We've been talking about it. It should have been 2 seasons. The last season should have been the attack on Winterfell, and then this season we should have stretched out all these moments with like Varys, Tyrion, Cersei, Jaime, Brienne. All of this should have been like their own episodes, and they just kind of mashed them together for some weird reason. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, I don't like any of that. All that is garbage, and there's a lot of garbage in this episode. But there was also there's some good things, and we can talk about it point by point. But I didn't feel any emotion during the last episode. I hated it. I wanted it to end. I wanted to quit. But this one, you know, there were some moments where I kind of like jumped out of my chair, and I was like, oh yeah, I like it. I don't agree with this decision, but it's like, yeah, okay, I can get behind you. I don't have to agree with your decision. I just have to, you know, I don't know. I like it when they're divisive, and they were pretty divisive this week.
Divisive is the word. If you remember last week, I compared this season of Game of Thrones to WWE. You remember that? Exactly. Oh, yeah. And this episode was Bash at the Beach 1996. This was Hollywood Hogan coming in, everyone loving him, and then just out of nowhere dropping the leg.
NWO.
Exactly. Peeling it off, having black and white, like saying...
No more thunder in paradise.
Exactly. And as a viewer, you are left wondering, why is this happening? This doesn't make any sense. And then, you know, later on down, he gives like a really impassioned speech, and you're like, oh, okay, this is why. Well, next week's episode, we're going to need to hear a really impassioned speech from old Daenerys. I know it's not. But it's okay. First off, I thought it was the best directed episode in the history of Game of Thrones. And the most visually beautiful, stunning. There are so many scenes in here that you could probably just put in like a giant poster and then hang it on your wall, because it's just...
Arya and the horse?
Exactly.
Arya
or
and the horse.
Just Arya standing there. Or that scene with Davos and Jon and Grey Worm walking through with like the shattered, or then Clegane Bowl with the dragon flying over with the fire. Like,
I didn't like that.
Oh,
I didn't like the whole like Star Wars, like J.J. Abrams kind of like weird lens flare that they did for that scene. I hated that. But everything else was like gorgeous. It was like Ansel Adams style.
Beautiful pictures. Just beautiful pictures. It looked different. The coloring was it looked very cinematic. Like, it was very kind of like fine point, like hyper definition. Like it was so clear, so
Sputnik,
colorful.
man.
Yeah, I loved it. It was it's Sapochnik, Miguel. But
Mikhail.
that is where like my absolute loving of this kind of ends, and it goes from loving it from a pure amazing quality to I enjoyed it based on entertainment's sake, and I didn't take it for being an incredible work of art. Like the work of incredible art stopped at the visualization, and then the popcorn entertainment factor took place once they started talking and action started occurring, which is so disappointing because the show used to be incredible in both those aspects.
Right.
But,
Well,
but
I
yeah,
have to say, the first 20 minutes of this was a throwaway episode. I wanted to turn it off, honestly. But as soon as we got into like the battle, I was all on board. So, I mean, here you have again, just like last week, you have a crappy script, and then you see what a capable director can do. So last week we had what's his name, Mr. Butters, with some of the worst directing, some of the worst camera angles, some of the worst acting that I've ever seen in film, TV, animation. On stage either. And then this week you have somebody who's really capable, and he can kind of make up for any shortcomings that an actor has with just gorgeous shots and kind of take your mind away from that. You may not like that, but this guy's VIP, man. He's the Tom Brady of this Super Bowl. He saved
don't do
this
that.
episode.
Well, I guess that would make it sense that I hated the result, and result didn't seem fair. So yeah, it's a pretty outstanding comparison. I guess we'll just get into it. The episode was entertaining. I enjoyed it. I had fun. There were parts of it I loved, but there's just one thing I cannot get over, and it's been the topic of conversation. It's been hashed out from every outlet that you can find, and you know what? We're gonna hash it out here too. It was not justified. Daenerys, everything made sense up until that spot of her seeing it, the bells going off. She won. Everything's great. She looks at the Red Keep, and in my mind, I was like, okay, that's fine. Just go to the Red Keep, fly up there, find Daenerys, find Cersei, blow her into ashes, and then we're done. But then something snapped, and she became leading a mass genocide of children and mothers and zigzagging through the course, like becoming the absolute worst character that Game of Thrones has ever seen. And the justification wasn't there. Of course, I understand her best friend just died. Her protector died. She just lost her second child. This is terrible stuff, but you can't just turn someone that was good and wholesome in 2 episodes.
Well, okay, so the character arc may have been a little bit rushed, but this is where it's been going. This is what it's been leading up to. This is what should have happened. And I liked it. I figured, you know what? I wasn't for it. I wouldn't have written it that way. But then when it was happening, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool. I like this. Yeah, just kill everybody. Like, and this is the town, this is the country, the city or whatever that really, 300 years ago, her family came here, and then they just kind of ousted her. She has nothing but spite for these people, and she wants to send a message. She said, fear's what I have, and so I'm going to do that. And it also doesn't make sense logistically, I guess, because now everyone hates you. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I figured they were like, we're going to go with this bad decision, but we're going to go 110%. And so, like, at least they went in on their decision. I didn't feel like they were kind of like, ugh, should we have done that? They're like, no, we're going to kill everybody. I don't care what you think.
The finish line makes sense. Her doing that makes sense, but I feel like it's incredibly rushed. Like, you needed to have like maybe 3 episodes in between of a growing distrust between her and Jon. Like, okay, this whole Varys thing. I interesting thing I want to ask you. So Varys dies at the beginning, right? He's writing a note, and then he just accepts his death. Like, this guy that's gotten away from murder and tyrannous rulers his entire life, he just submits himself. But I've read theories that little girl that comes in, he was trying to have her poison Daenerys. Did you get this?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that what your thought
in the
is?
rings, right? Because he takes his rings off before, right? And so they'd use rings to poison Joffrey, right? He was carried in the ring. So there's this whole thing about the rings. Honestly, I don't think they're that smart. I think it was just he knew he was going to get burned, and he didn't want the only thing left to be these rings, because the rings would probably still be there. So I think it was just him accepting fate.
Okay, so there's one issue. Okay, so we can see, like, play up the fact that her own people are trying to poison her. That would sour her. Play up go more into why Sansa doesn't trust her, more people plotting against her. Go into more of her hating the Lannisters. Like, play up, maybe have a scene between her and Jaime where she's talking about her hatred of the Lannisters and hating everything that they stand for, including all of the people and babies and mothers that rule her. Like, really watch her grow. It can't just be this one scene when she hears the bells ringing and then like her nephew doesn't want to do her anymore, so now clearly everyone should die. Like, it just, yeah, it's just so rushed and it's so good, and you have such an amazing character played by a really outstanding actress have this, like, everyone was behind her, and she was the symbol of the show, and she was this great, like, outlet of power and the opposite of Cersei, and you can have like the greatest that women can be and the worst that they can be as rulers, but she stood for all that was right and all that was good, and then you just strip that away in like a 20-minute arc. Like, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Well, I think we've seen the demise of like all the good female characters in the last few episodes, and as much as people complain about the Daenerys shift in character, I didn't mind that so much. The one I minded was Cersei, who in the last like 20 minutes became completely unrecognizable. Like, I liked her stubbornness to like not leave until the last minute. I like that. But then when she's down in the crypt or whatever, talking about, I don't want to go. Oh my God, come on, that's not her. That's not her.
I loved it. I love that part.
I hate it. Oh, okay. So we're like completely.
Well, that's why we're doing this. All right, no, so this is good. We'll just go off. People have spent enough time on Daenerys. A lot of people are upset with how Cersei died. People wanted Arya to kill her. She wanted it bad. I did too. I thought it was perfect. And like, people are like, no, she deserved to be killed. Like, she was the worst character on the show. Okay, let me tell you something. The entire city that she stood for and has been around for thousands of years, the thing that she holds nearest and dear to her heart is her family and her children, and continuing on that legacy. She had to watch her entire legacy burn down before her eyes, and then, not metaphorically, crumble on top of her, with the only person in the world that she loves, with the only thing that she cared about, being destroyed and crushed by the very thing that she hold nearest and dearest. So that is a pretty terrible way to die. And I just think it's justified that she would be terrified. That was the first moment where we saw everything that gave her power stripped away, and she had nothing. She had no money, or nothing of her conniving evil ways was going to protect her. Like, that's a bad way to go down. That's sad. She's my girl. I was
just kind of hoping for like a Thanos kind of death, where he just kind of like sits there and then just everything comes in. Like, I didn't like the breakdown at the end. It just wasn't for me, but I liked it. I really, because to me it's like saying screw you to the fans, and I love it when the show does that. And I wish they did that more. So I was just
well, good news for you. There's one more episode.
Screaming when oh my God, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Directed by the worst two writers of the show, so that's going to be great. Just direct it yourself. That's why they're going to be in seclusion. But I liked everything about it, because there's all these like theories. Oh, Jaime's going to kill her. That's what I thought. Or who's going to kill who? And then they're like, nope, nobody kills her. We're not giving you closure. Sorry, screw you. I loved it. I loved every part of it. So those little moments are what made up for all the inconsistencies and overpowering of dragons that took place. But the Varys thing, we were just talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was some good parts in that. I don't understand why this guy's like a master of secrets, and he's like writing notes out in the open where anybody can just walk in. And it's just like a little boy who just got caught masturbating by his mom. Like, he just puts his hands over the note. Like, oh, yeah, nothing to see here. I wasn't using my computer. And just like, hey, you have locks on these doors? Like, I know there's I don't know.
Yeah.
That was
It was sloppy, especially because Varys is like the smartest character on the show. He was just like Littlefinger. He had everything played, and he always was a step ahead of the game, and he put himself out there. I've heard people say that's because Melisandre told him that he was going to die, and so he just kind of seemed resigned to his fate. And in a way, he gets to go out on top because he warned everyone. They didn't listen, and now he's justified because they're all dead, and now they have this mad tyrant ruling over all of them.
But much like Littlefinger, he died anticlimactically.
Yeah.
Just like, what? You have these great characters and you're killing them in ways that are not doing justice to them. Right?
This whole show is being anticlimactic, man. Everything. All the climaxes just don't make any sense. And it's just a matter of like...
Who's he writing to, though? That was my biggest question. Like, who's he writing to? Like, who?
Yeah, they're all
who's
there.
Who's he telling? Like, who?
Littlefinger?
Yeah, so, I mean, Sansa already knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I think he might be writing to, like, the Iron Bank or somebody like that. Because everyone in the North knows. He wouldn't be writing to Cersei. So who are you writing to?
Something tells me... yeah. Something. Maybe we'll find out next episode. Maybe we'll find out what Bran's doing. Where's Bran? What's he doing?
Oh, who cares? Who cares? He's
right.
coming back, right?
Yeah, he has to.
Leith and Lindelof, right? They're directing, and you know they haven't directed an episode.
Wrong show. Lindelof is lost, but close.
Whatever, man. The same thing. We're experiencing the same. This is deja vu, man.
Benioff.
We're gonna wake up in a church and find out they died in a plane crash and ended up in Westeros.
And I'll be fine. Yeah. We have to go back. We have to go back.
No, we're not. I don't want to go back.
Okay. So the next character I want to talk about is, going off the Cersei thing, was Jaime Lannister. Jaime Lannister was one of my biggest frustrations of the show. Is he was the most complex character of the entire show. If you remember in those first 2 seasons, I got to rewatch the whole show. You hate Jaime. Jaime is the worst character on the show. He's awful. He's terrible. He strangles his own cousins. He's a horrible human being. But you've taken this multi-year arc. It took 5 years to pay off to where you absolutely love him. You took someone you couldn't care less about, and then you didn't want anything bad happening to him. And then...
He's like the R. Kelly of Westeros.
Okay.
Did he pee on some girls? Nah, he didn't pee on those girls. And then you give it a few years. Oh, yeah, he peed on some girls.
All right, that's a statement. Okay. But then, so in a series of like 4 nights, so then he falls in love with Brienne. Okay, we can go with that. And then he stays with her. And then in 4 days, he looks into a fire and then suddenly realizes he still loves his sister. So then he goes back and nothing comes of it. He just wants to be with her. And then Tyrion helps them both escape, which I understand why Tyrion's repaying the favor to his brother, but it's not like Cersei doesn't deserve a happy ending here. Jaime, sure, but Cersei doesn't. And then, so then Jaime gets there, and then he just dies. And it's another thing that I understand. I believe it 100%. It was the best, it's probably the best love story in the show, is the love story behind Jaime and Cersei. Weird, but it's true. And it was so rushed. If you stretch it out, 3 episodes of him coming to realization, getting back, like, I can get behind it. It's just a matter of, like, you're just throwing all of these things in Cliff Notes version on screen to us and then just expecting us to be okay with it. And that's frustrating.
Well, you kind of have to be okay with it because we don't have a choice anymore. But I don't know. And I think you're bearing the lead here because the problem was not with Jaime. The problem was with Euron, who was just like, oh my God, he's such an eyesore. I literally groaned at the top of my lungs when he showed up, like right at the boat right there. I was like, oh, no. He's like the worst Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, he's a cartoon character. He's a cartoon character
on the show. He's awful. He's so annoying and awful. I don't like anything about him. He's worse than, what is that guy, Ramsay. Ugh.
No, I agree. Ugh. And that's my problem is the writers take these extremes. And my favorite characters in the show are these people that are multi-layered. The best villain on the entire show was always Cersei, because Cersei had reasons for why she was so awful. Everything that she did was justified, was for her children. Like, she blew up a church. And all the innocent people in there died. But she had a reason behind that. Those same people spit on her, called, shame, threw human feces at her, just laughed at her as she walked down the street. That's justified. That's understandable. It's not right, but at the same reason, you understood why she was. She was never like a character, like an overarching cartoon caricature of a human being. But you had your Joffreys, you had your Ramsays, and now you have your Daenerys. Like, Daenerys has now become this ultimate awful evil that there's no real reason and legitimacy between her terrible decisions.
Well, I think that they tried to allude to it in past episodes, but because the directors are different for every episode, I think that there was no communication where it's like, hey, we need to kind of push this. And then they got to this episode and they're like, oh, that's right. We need to talk about Daenerys. She's crazy. We'll just have Tyrion mention like 5 times that like the gods flip a coin every time a Targaryen's born. We'll just say that like 3 times, and then people will be like, oh, that must be why.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big drop there.
You caught the previously on Game of Thrones, right?
Oh, it with Brienne doing her worst acting job ever, crying again. That was the worst way to open it.
No, but there's that scene of Daenerys after Missandei gets her head cut off, and she has all of those voices going through her head. That was good.
Oh, it's awful.
No, I liked it because that gives you some
Stop
sort of
telling me what's going to happen.
Yeah, but we knew where it was going. We knew where it was going.
You know it's bad when it's like the opening sequence like that has to literally add voiceover effects to explain to you what's about to happen because they didn't do a well enough job in 8 seasons.
Well, they did. They did a really good job for 5. They did a really good job for 5, and then it just hits the rails. I hope somehow, some way, George R.R. Martin writes the books, and then we get to see how far off the path they went. Because I feel like it has to be completely diverted from where he wants it to be.
I hope he never finishes it. I hope it never happens. I hope it's like that Guns N' Roses album, except it never comes out, because I think that's the way to do it, man. Just like leave people's expectations high and then don't ever deliver. Just edge them out. Yeah. Don't let them climax, you know what I mean? But what about that kiss between Jon Snow and Daenerys? Nobody's talking about that? It was great. You ever kissed a girl and it's like you're not into it, but because, a girl doesn't want to kiss a guy, she can just say, I don't like you. I don't want to kiss you right now. I'm not in the mood. But a guy, we can't deny a girl. We can't say, I don't want to kiss you. Girls can't handle that stuff, man. So I really like this because it really addresses this issue.
Yeah, so thank you, Jon Snow, for getting us back. For all the times that girls have done that to us. Hey, finally.
As guys, we're supposed to always be in the mood. We're supposed to always want it. You're always on your game as a girl, right? But sometimes I don't. I want to watch Game of Thrones. Sometimes I want to play a video game. I don't want to kiss you.
Yeah, no, I mean,
breath stinks. So Jon Snow is just like that.
At the same time, a lot of people have been on the end of like when your aunt's kissing you, and you're like, oh, this is too much. It's too much. So it's kind of it's almost too on the nose.
But if you'd already slept with your aunt, you'd probably, I don't know. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Okay.
Whatever. Incest is a big theme in this.
I know, but there's good incest and bad incest on this show. So
better than brother and sister.
Yeah. All right. So we've hashed out some things. There are more things I can get into, but the good was good, and I'm glad it happened. I've gotten to the point to where I'm ready for it to be over, because it's kind of gotten to the point, it's like, this is why we can't have nice things. There is a huge outlash, and we come out here and we try to talk about things, and we're complaining about a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we're grateful for what we're watching because it's something really entertaining. But whenever you had on Twitter, BuzzFeed had an article, and the article said, so that episode of Game of Thrones sucked. Here's why everyone hates it. And I'm like, hold a second. Like, BuzzFeed, when did you become the all-ruling voice of what is good quality? Like, no.
Shots fired.
You don't get to decide what is good art and what is important. And you can't just say, that episode sucked, because that episode didn't suck. It had some huge, glaring missteps. But as a whole, it was a beautiful episode of television that made people feel a lot of stuff. Am I wrong? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I almost cried when Arya calls the Hound by his name. He calls him Sandor.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Oh, this is my favorite relationship. It's always been my favorite relationship in the stories, is Arya and the Hound.
Yeah.
And that battle, speaking of WCW, WWW, that was like, besides the fact that the Mountain looks like a really tall, fat Varys, like I was like, oh, Varys, he's back. He's not dead. But, oh my God, he turned into like Goldberg or something, right? You got this giant, like, beast of a man, and that's you, that's you, right? And then he just tackles him into the fire. I loved it. It was so great.
It was beautiful.
That's everything I wanted from the Clegane Bowl. That's everything I wanted.
That was a good moment. I loved the scene between Tyrion and Jaime as well. That was a really good moment, and that moment of them embracing at the end, they're like, oh crap, that's the last time we see them together. And like, the show's always been good at those talking scenes when you just have nothing between two people but story, a history, and understanding. And that Clegane Bowl, there was some big fighting, but you understood everything. It wrote itself. Like, no matter what happened, it was so good. You even had the tie back to Oberyn, like how he kills Oberyn in the battle. Like, it was just so many good moments led up to it. And Arya is the highlight of this season for me. Like, I don't know how they got so lucky in casting Maisie Williams when she was, 12 years old, probably, when they casted her, and she's turned out to just be incredible. Like, everything was justified. I can have, like, her moment of being this soulless, like, emotionless person, to that moment of her calling him Sandor, and then the just terrified nature of walking through the streets. But everything makes sense. Like, I don't have any issues with any of that, and she's so good.
Yeah, they didn't rush any of the character development with her. Like, there was nothing in her arc that seemed sudden or just misrepresented. It all seemed like plausible. So when Cersei all of a sudden starts breaking down, I don't see it. It's too sudden. But when Arya is like right there at ground zero, and like with all the smoke, and like she sees that little girl and the mom get just like smothered. Awesome, by the way. She, like, you can read it on her face. Like, this is somebody who can act no matter what camera's pointing at or who's behind the scenes. Daenerys can't. So I don't know. I think you're right. They did get lucky, and Arya and Tyrion were the best parts of this episode.
Yeah,
especially Tyrion.
Always.
I think most of the more moving moments came from him.
For sure.
Luckily, they still have him for one more episode. Right? I guess.
Well, there's the transition right there. All right, so we have one episode left. There has to be conclusions made. We're going to have something happen between Jon and Dany. We're going to have something happen between Dany and Tyrion. We're going to have to find out where Bran is. We've got to see Sansa. Bran has to be explained, right? I don't know what, but so for my question for you, I've got a question for you. What is the one thing you want to see happen in this episode? What's the one thing that you need to see? Conclusion, something tied up. What's the one thing?
End credits, because I don't think I'm going to be able to really be satisfied by anything that happens. I don't think they can do it. They can't pull it off. This would be like the Cleveland Browns winning the Super Bowl next year. Like, it is not going to happen. And so you got the two worst people that could ever be directing in the director's chair. Sorry, guys. They're probably going to watch this anyway, but that's a bad decision.
We wish.
Yeah, so I don't like anything about it. Like, this is not looking good. The cards are not looking good. Whatever, though. I say screw it. It's another 80 minutes of my life. You know, I'm just grateful for where we've been. You know, just like Patriots fans will be in the next couple years. They're going to be grateful for all those Super Bowls, and then they're going to be at another drought. You know, why some Dan Marino starts tearing.
Oh, I can't wait. So. I can't wait for that. Okay. I need to see something happen with Bran. It has to be explained. And unfortunately, you know me, by gambling odd knowledge, he is the favorite to be sitting on the Iron Throne. And usually they know. And if you want the...
Because he's always sitting.
Personification of a television show being a human shrug, I think it would be Bran becoming the Iron Throne. You think Twitter's upset now, but if it's just Bran up there like this as the last episode, like, that's not gonna be exciting.
There's no throne. The throne's gone, so there's nowhere to even sit anyway. So there is no more Iron Throne.
Nah, the throne survives. You know it does. They'll find it. They'll go in there and
we dig it through the rubble, and we got this big crane to pull out the... No, that's not happening.
There was another white horse that went in, and they tied like a little rope to it, and it pulled it out.
I like the white horse.
The white horse.
It's like The Last Unicorn, one of my favorite movies.
There you go. So quick prediction. What's going to happen with Arya? Does she survive? Does she get a kill?
I think they're going to have to give her a kill. I think she's going to kill Daenerys.
I think so, too.
Or Jon Snow. Not Jon Snow. Either Jon Snow kills her or Arya kills Daenerys. Somebody kills Daenerys. Daenerys has to die. Her dragon has to die.
Who kills the dragon? I think, yeah. So there's going to have to be something with the faces. Something's going to have to be with the faces. So Arya is probably going to pose as someone with one of the faces.
Jon Snow. Jon Snow.
But then Jon Snow's going to have to die?
Or maybe she pretends to be the brother, her dead brother. Yeah.
That's kind of my thing, like Viserion or Viserys or whatever his name is. Yeah, I don't know. There's going to be something. That's my prediction, is I feel like Arya is going to get one more kill. Does Jon survive this episode?
No. I've always said he's got to die, and I think he's going to die. Like, he should have died the first time he died, but there's no reason for him to stay around. There's no reason for you to keep him around. So unless they're just really trying to shrug everyone off and say whatever, I don't think he's surviving at all. I hope he doesn't.
Do you have any predictions on big battles? There are going to be big fights between any characters? I've got a few.
Who's even left? Like you have Brienne. Who's she going to fight?
Grey Worm. Grey Worm's got to have a big battle. And my thing is, because Grey Worm's going to be Daenerys' right-hand man protecting. So that means Grey Worm's going to battle with Jon Snow, maybe? Maybe Grey Worm's going to kill Davos? I hope not. Davos is my dude. Maybe Grey Worm fights Brienne of Tarth. That's kind of my prediction. I think there's going to be some battle between Brienne and someone. She's got to fight off someone.
So Also, I didn't like the Grey Worm thing either. Why all of a sudden do we hate foreigners so much? So anybody that comes from across the sea is just like a savage that just brutally kills people, like is a crazy barbarian. There's a lot of.
I'm going to fight you on this one. I actually thought that Grey Worm was incredibly well justified. He was unsullied. He had no emotion, no attachment to anything. He was a slave. He had nothing. He fell in love with Missandei and Dany, who treated him, taught him emotion, taught him love. So the first thing that he ever loved or felt any emotion for in his entire life, he had to watch have her head cut off. And so when he's at that moment, and then he sees his queen snap, he's always going to snap. And he has every right in the world to. I understand. And then he goes back into his fighter ways. So that was justified to me. That translated for me. I got a nod from Ty.
Yeah, you convinced me.
So, okay.
Jon Snow really made me mad during that part too. Like, what are you doing, man? Like,
Jon Snow has really bad. A lot of people have bad taste in women. Jon Snow has the worst taste in armies and people to fight with. Because no matter who he fights with, they're going to either try to kill him or not listen to him. Guy runs terribly. He has to just I got nothing. I don't know. No matter what I do, I'm losing. Or people are trying to kill me. And it's about to happen this episode. So I don't know. Okay, Sansa. What happens with Sansa?
I think she sticks it out. So I think she's a heavy favorite to survive to the end. I don't know where she ends up. I still don't see her wanting to go to King's Landing or anything like that.
There is no King's Landing.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess they got to move the capital now to the north. That doesn't make sense.
It'll be one.
So Riverdale or whatever.
Probably Dragonstone, with her cool throne of the glacier triangle thing.
I also don't see this show is so steeped in mythology. I don't see them killing off every Targaryen. So I feel like there's got to be either you do the thing where everyone says Tyrion is secretly a Targaryen or something. Because I don't see you just ending that bloodline. It doesn't make sense because they want to do sequels. I'm sure.
Yeah, there are definitely spin-offs. They haven't really released which one goes on, if it's like a prequel or an extension of the universe. I would imagine that Arya is probably going to be attached to something. So I think Arya is the number one person that is going to survive. I think Sansa's fine. I don't think... that's my guess for ruler of the throne. I feel like there's got to be some sort of way that it could end with Sansa and Tyrion ruling. I don't know. They decide to get married, honor their marriage, and they rule together. If he just stays the hand of the queen, I'm not sure. But
Gendry, man, I still think Gendry ends up king of the king. Yeah, he's up there with Sansa and them. He's loyal to them. Why would he go to the south to fight Jon Snow's war?
Yeah.
But I got a question for you. So we've already seen Sapochnik, or whatever his name is, Michael Sapat.
Miguel.
We've seen his great directing. Right? He's directed some of the most iconic episodes, and especially this episode. What do you think? What do you do if you're him? Right? He already has a movie coming out in 2020 with Tom Hanks about some robots or something like that called Bios. That sounds like it might not be good. But what do you do? Do you sit it out and try to direct some TV stuff and wait for all this to kind of die off and try to shake the Game of Thrones thing off you, or do you just say screw it? I want to do the Mummy remake or something. What do you do if you're this guy? Because he's getting calls.
You probably just stick with the girl that brought you. You stick around and you wait for those Game of Thrones spinoffs. He's an incredible director. He's made for this. He's made for those battle scenes, and the character development is not so much his bag, but it's those big multiple. He's like the Michael Bay, but if Michael Bay had a little bit more emotional content. But honestly, this was not that far off of a Michael Bay film. But
I could understand the action. I can't understand the action in a Michael Bay film. Which robot is which? I don't know who Optimus Prime is and who's the bad guy. They all look like big pieces of metal to me.
Yeah, well, dragons.
So
Yeah, I don't know. I'm interested. I'm not in a position where I'm going to be able to make predictions, and honestly, I think that's a good thing. Whenever you just kind of lower your bar and just like, all right, let's see this go. Let's see this. I was so sad that the show was ending, but like because of the outcry of people and obviously the direction that the show has gone, it's time to be done with it. And I still will look back on it better. It's still winding up better than Lost. You just have to like when you view it in comparison. But it's a bit of a missed opportunity, but it's still a great thing. Like it's still going to go down as one of the greatest television experiences of all time. I think. Do you still agree?
100% agree. And no matter how it ends, like they could just throw everything in the garbage and say we kill everybody, and the Night King's back, and he's really Bran, and he's on the throne now, and it's eternal winter, and I would still be happy with it because regardless of how these last 3 episodes, you have to remember the first 3 episodes of the season were pretty good, and if you look at the ratings, people like them. So if that's where it loses steam, the last 3 episodes of an 8-season TV series, who cares? You had such a great ride. So stop trying to just get off. Like, you know when it's your time to retire, just get off. So, yeah, it's going to suck, but whatever. Man.
And I'm sure if the majority of people had Twitter back when the finale of MASH and Friends and Sopranos were running, you would have had a million different TV critics telling you, wow, this is the worst television show ending of all time. So people are just going to be
until after MASH, which was probably the worst television show of all time.
Hot take.
Seen it. Yeah, I'm guessing you haven't seen it.
I have not. Called out. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. I've got a show for you to suggest to you, Ty. You told me about your Netflix show last week. I've got one for you. Dead to Me, starring Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini from
Star of Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead?
Exactly. Have you heard of Dead to Me, Ty?
Dead to Me? No, I've heard of... No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, I saw you started doing
Dead
something
Like Me.
It's outstanding. I just started it. We are like 4 episodes in. It's a dramedy. It's got Christine Applegate, always good. I don't want to tell you much about it. You should just watch the first episode. It's 28 minutes long, short and sweet. If you're not hooked by the end of that episode, you just continue with your day. It's good. The less you know, the better. It's good. It's good.
I'll get it before the week's out.
There you go. Sounds good. And I'll keep looking for...
I see things people suggest.
I know. Attack of the Titan. I get it. All right, everyone. So you come back. Next week's going to be a big one. We might have to allow for a little bit more time to talk about it.
Or not.
That's true. All right, Ty. Well, thank you so much. You did great. Perfect.
Thank you.
I've been Nathan. This has been NateFlix. We will see you next week for the finale of Game of Thrones.